The first light of dawn painted the maintenance hangar in shades of orange and gray. Master Sergeant Olivia Hart crouched beneath the belly of an A-10 Thunderbolt, her flashlight beam dancing across hydraulic lines and weapon systems. The morning air still held yesterday's heat, and sweat already beaded on her forehead. "Number 7 hydraulic fitting," she muttered, running her fingers along a connection most mechanics would have missed. The metal felt wrong. Too smooth where it should have texture. She grabbed her wrench and gave it a quarter turn. "There you go, girl." 15 years of working on these aircraft had taught her to listen. The hangar hummed with the sounds of engines warming up, air compressors cycling, and mechanics calling to each other across the concrete floor. But underneath it all, she could hear what others missed. The slight whistle of a seal going bad. The different pitch when hydraulic pressure dropped 2 pounds per square inch below normal. "Hart." Sergeant Williams jogged over, clipboard in hand. "You finished with 7-7 yet?" "Almost." Olivia wiped her hands on her coveralls. "Found a loose hydraulic fitting in a worn brake pad. She's good to go in 10 minutes. Williams shook his head. "How do you always find this stuff?" "I did the pre-flight yesterday." "You looked." "I listened." Olivia moved to the landing gear, checking tire pressure with practiced efficiency. "These birds talk if you know their language." The radio crackled overhead. "Tower, this is Warthog 1, requesting priority landing. We've got some new scratches to show the maintenance crew." Olivia looked up. Captain Jake Morrison's voice carried that mix of confidence and concern she'd learned to read over the years. She'd been keeping his aircraft mission ready since he arrived at the base 2 years ago. He was one of the few pilots who actually asked her opinion instead of just telling her what needed fixing. "Speaking of Morrison," Williams said, following her gaze toward the runway. "Guy requested you specifically for his post-flight inspection yesterday. Said you catch things other people miss." "He's not wrong." Olivia secured her tools and moved toward the hangar door. Morrison's A-10 was already visible in the distance, its distinctive twin engines and straight wings unmistakable against the morning sky. "Must be nice," Williams said. "Having pilots ask for you by name." Something in his tone made her pause. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing. Just saying some of us have been here longer without getting special treatment." Olivia turned to face him. "Special treatment? I've been working on these aircraft since before you knew which end of a wrench to hold. If Morrison asks for me, it's because I keep his plane flying and his ass alive." Williams raised his hands. "Hey, I didn't mean anything by it." But he had meant something, and they both knew it. Olivia had heard the whispers. "Ground crew. Just a mechanic." 15 years of perfect maintenance records, of finding problems that could have killed pilots, of working 18-hour days to keep aircraft mission ready. But she was still just ground crew. She walked outside as Morrison's A-10 touched down, its massive tires smoking against the runway. The aircraft looked different somehow. Olivia squinted, trying to identify what had changed. The plane taxied toward the maintenance area, and Morrison gave her a thumbs up from the cockpit. She returned the gesture automatically, but her attention was fixed on the aircraft itself. Dark streaks ran along the fuselage. Not bullet holes or shrapnel damage. Something else. Morrison shut down the engines and climbed down from the cockpit, pulling off his helmet. "Hart. Good to see you. Got something interesting for you today." "What happened up there, Captain?" Olivia was already circling the aircraft, her trained eye cataloging the damage. "That's what I'm hoping you can tell me." Morrison pointed to the dark streaks. "Started about 20 miles out. No enemy fire, no weather. Just suddenly felt like someone was messing with my electronics." Olivia ran her hand along one of the streaks. The metal felt warm, almost tingly under her fingertips. She'd never seen anything like it. "This isn't normal combat damage." "I know. That's why I asked for you specifically." Morrison pulled out his flight log. "Lost radar for about 30 seconds. GPS went fuzzy. Even my radio started cutting in and out. Electronic warfare? Olivia knelt next to the landing gear, examining the strange markings that seemed to follow the aircraft's electrical systems. Maybe. But I've never seen anything leave marks like this before. Neither had she. In 15 years of maintaining combat aircraft, through 3 deployments and countless missions, Olivia had seen every type of damage imaginable. Battle scars told stories. This was something new. She stood, wiping her hands on her coveralls again. "Give me an hour with her, Captain. I'll figure out what we're looking at." Morrison nodded. "That's why I asked for the best mechanic on the base." As he walked away, Olivia stared at the mysterious streaks across the A-10's skin. Whatever had happened up there, it was beyond anything in her experience. And that worried her more than she wanted to admit. Olivia spent the next 2 hours with Morrison's A-10, her hands tracing every inch of the strange damage. The dark streaks followed the aircraft's wiring harnesses like a roadmap of the electrical system. She'd pulled access panels, checked connections, and run diagnostics on every electronic component. "The pattern's too precise," she said to herself, photographing the damage with her tablet. "This isn't random." The streaks ended exactly where the main power distribution box connected to the avionics bay. Whatever had caused this knew the aircraft's electrical layout better than most mechanics. Morrison appeared at her shoulder. "Find anything useful?" "More than I wanted to." Olivia showed him the photos on her tablet. "Look at how these marks follow the power cables. Someone targeted your electrical systems specifically." "Someone?" "Electronic warfare. But not the usual jamming we see." She zoomed in on a section where the streaking was heaviest. "This looks like directed energy. Microwave maybe. Designed to overload specific circuits." Morrison studied the images. "That would explain the radar loss and GPS problems. And the radio interference." Olivia swiped to another photo. "See how the marks stop right at the communication array? They knew exactly which systems to hit. We need to brief intelligence on this." 20 minutes later, Olivia sat in the briefing room across from Major Collins and Lieutenant Rodriguez from intelligence. The air conditioning hummed overhead, but the room felt stuffy. Collins had that look officers got when enlisted personnel started talking above their pay grade. "So you're telling us," Collins said, not looking up from his notepad, "that you've identified a new enemy weapon system based on scorch marks?" "It's not just scorch marks, sir." Olivia leaned forward. "The pattern indicates targeted electromagnetic pulse weapons. They're not trying to shoot down our aircraft. They're trying to disable them." Rodriguez laughed. "Sergeant Hart, with respect, you're a mechanic. Electronic warfare assessment is outside your expertise." Heat rose in Olivia's chest, but she kept her voice steady. "I've been maintaining combat avionics for 15 years, sir. I know what normal electronic failure looks like. This isn't it." "What Lieutenant Rodriguez means," Collins said, "is that we have trained intelligence analysts who handle threat assessment. Your job is to fix the planes, not analyze enemy capabilities." Morrison cleared his throat. "Major, if I may. Sergeant Hart knows these aircraft better than anyone on the base. If she says this damage pattern is unusual, I think we should listen. Captain Morrison, I appreciate your loyalty to your maintenance crew, but it's not loyalty, sir. It's experience." Morrison's voice carried an edge now. 3 weeks ago, Viper Flight lost 2 aircraft to unknown causes. Last week, Thunder Flight had multiple electronic failures during a simple patrol. Now my bird gets hit with something that leaves physical evidence. Hart's right. This is coordinated." Collins closed his notepad. "Even if you're correct, the solution isn't sending mechanics to analyze enemy positions. We have proper channels for this." "Your proper channels missed it so far," Morrison said. The room went quiet. Rodriguez shifted in his seat. Collins stared at Morrison for a long moment. "Captain, are you questioning intelligence procedures?" I'm questioning why we're ignoring valuable input because it comes from someone with grease under her fingernails instead of bars on her collar. Olivia watched the exchange, recognizing the moment when politics trumped logic. She'd seen it before. The military loved expertise until it came from the wrong source. "Gentlemen," she said quietly, "permission to speak freely?" Collins waved his hand. "Go ahead, Sergeant. You can dismiss my theories all you want. But in 2 days, you'll have more aircraft coming back with the same damage. And when pilots start dying because their electronics fail at the wrong moment, you'll wish you'd listened to the mechanic who actually touches these systems every day." She stood, gathering her tablet and photos. "Captain Morrison, my analysis is in your hands. Do with it what you think best." As she reached the door, Morrison's voice stopped her. "Hart, wait." She turned. Morrison was still seated, but his expression had changed. "Major Collins, I'm formally requesting Sergeant Hart for a reconnaissance mission. We need someone who understands both aircraft vulnerabilities and enemy capabilities from a technical perspective." Collins stared at him. "You want to send a mechanic into hostile territory?" "I want to send the person most qualified to identify how the enemy is targeting our aircraft. That happens to be a mechanic." Rodriguez leaned back in his chair. "Captain, that's completely against protocol. So is losing aircraft to an enemy weapon we don't understand." Morrison stood. "Sir, I'll put the request in writing within the hour." Olivia felt her pulse quicken. After 15 years of being told to stay in her lane, someone was finally asking her to drive. Colonel Reynolds sat behind his desk like a mountain that had been carved into military bearing. His office walls displayed 25 years of service photos, commendations, and unit citations. Morrison stood at attention in front of the desk. Olivia stood beside him, her hands clasped behind her back. "Let me understand this correctly, Captain." Reynolds tapped Morrison's written request with his pen. "You want to take a maintenance sergeant into hostile territory to analyze enemy electronic warfare capabilities?" "Yes, sir." "A mechanic. The best aircraft systems expert on the base, sir." Reynolds looked at Olivia for the first time since they'd entered his office. She met his gaze without flinching. She'd been inspected by officers before. "Sergeant Hart, what makes you think you're qualified for field operations?" "I'm not asking to lead a patrol, sir. But I know these aircraft inside and out. I can spot vulnerabilities from the ground that pilots can't see from the air. The enemy isn't going to let you crawl under their equipment with a wrench, Sergeant." "No, sir. But I can recognize the signatures of electronic warfare systems. I can tell you how they're targeting our birds and what we need to do to counter them." Reynolds leaned back in his chair. "We have intelligence specialists for threat analysis. With respect, sir, your intelligence specialists missed this threat entirely. They're still calling it random equipment failure." Morrison stepped forward slightly. "Colonel, we've lost 5 aircraft in 3 weeks. The enemy knows something about our systems that we don't know they know. And you think a mechanic is going to solve that problem?" Olivia felt heat rise in her chest. "Sir, I've kept combat aircraft flying through 3 deployments. I've diagnosed system failures under mortar fire. I've rebuilt engines with parts scrounged from wrecked birds. Maybe I'm just a mechanic, but I'm a mechanic who understands how these systems fail." Reynolds studied her for a long moment. "What's your assessment of the threat, Sergeant?" "The enemy has developed targeted electronic weapons. They're not trying to shoot us down anymore. They're trying to disable our electronics and force emergency landings. It's cleaner, quieter, and harder to detect than surface-to-air missiles." "And you came to this conclusion how?" "By looking at the damage patterns. By understanding how electrical systems are laid out in these aircraft. By recognizing that random failures don't follow wire harnesses." Reynolds turned to Morrison. "Captain, you're willing to stake your career on a mechanic's theory?" "I'm willing to stake my career on 15 years of proven expertise, sir. Hart's never been wrong about aircraft systems. Not once." The colonel stood and walked to the window overlooking the flight line. Olivia could see him weighing options, calculating risks. After several minutes, he turned back to face them. "I don't like it. Sending enlisted personnel into combat zones outside their specialty violates every protocol we have." Olivia's heart sank. She'd gotten closer to field operations than ever before, only to watch it slip away again. However, Reynolds continued, "Losing aircraft to an unknown threat violates my responsibility to protect our air assets." Hope flickered back to life in her chest. "Here's what I'm willing to authorize. Sergeant Hart joins a reconnaissance mission as a technical advisor only. She goes in with Special Forces escort and stays with the team at all times. Her job is to identify enemy capabilities, not engage in combat operations." "Thank you, sir," Morrison said. "Don't thank me yet, Captain. If this goes wrong, it ends both your careers." Reynolds looked at Olivia. "Sergeant, you understand what you're volunteering for?" "Yes, sir. I understand the risks." "Do you?" "You're asking to leave the safety of the maintenance hangar for a combat zone. You could be captured, wounded, or killed. Is proving a point worth that risk?" Olivia thought of all the aircraft she'd sent into battle. All the pilots whose lives depended on her work. All the years of being told her expertise didn't matter outside the hangar. "Sir, it's not about proving a point. It's about doing the job that needs to be done." Reynolds nodded slowly. "Report to Special Forces at 0600 tomorrow for mission briefing and equipment issue. You'll insert at 1400 hours." 2 hours later, Olivia stood in the Special Forces equipment room, trying on body armor that felt heavier than any toolbox she'd ever carried. Sergeant Davis, a compact man with serious eyes, showed her how to adjust the straps. "Ever been in a combat zone, Hart?" "3 deployments, but always on base. Never outside the wire. Different world out there. You follow orders immediately and without question. You stay close to the team. You don't try to be a hero." "Understood, Sergeant." Davis handed her a radio headset. "Your call sign is Wrench. Keep the chatter to minimum unless you see something we need to know." Wrench. Even in Special Forces, she was still just a mechanic. But for the first time in her career, being a mechanic was exactly what the mission needed. The next afternoon, Olivia climbed into the transport helicopter, her equipment pack secured to her back. The rotor wash whipped her hair as she found her seat between Davis and Corporal Chen. Through the open door, she could see the base shrinking below them. Morrison's voice crackled through her headset. "Wrench, this is Warthog 1. We've got you covered from up here." She keyed her mic. "Copy, Warthog 1. Time to see what's really going on out there." The helicopter banked toward hostile territory. After 15 years of watching others fly into danger, Olivia Hart was finally going along for the mission. The helicopter's skids touched dirt 30 miles behind enemy lines. Olivia's stomach lurched as the aircraft lifted off immediately, leaving them in sudden silence. The absence of engine noise felt wrong after 15 years of working around aircraft. "Move," Davis whispered, his rifle ready. Olivia followed him and chin through scrub brush toward a rocky outcropping. Her pack felt heavier with each step. The body armor restricted her movement in ways coveralls never had. But her hands were steady when she pulled out her binoculars. They climbed for 20 minutes before Davis signaled them to stop. Below them, a valley stretched between 2 ridges. Olivia could see the enemy position immediately. "There," she pointed. "Those aren't normal radar dishes." Chen squinted through his scope. "Look like satellite dishes to me." "No. Wrong shape, wrong angle." Olivia adjusted her binoculars. "Satellite dishes point up. Those are pointing horizontally. They're scanning for aircraft." Davis keyed his radio. "Overwatch, this is ground team. We have eyes on target." Static answered him. "Overwatch, do you copy?" More static. Davis tried different frequencies, but the result was the same. They're jamming us, Olivia said. How do you know? Listen to the static. It's not random. There's a pattern underneath it. She'd learned to recognize electronic interference while troubleshooting aircraft radios. Someone's broadcasting white noise on our frequencies. Below them, the enemy camp looked like any military outpost. Tents, vehicles, guards walking patrol routes. But Olivia saw details the others missed. Count the generator trucks, she said. Chen counted silently. 4. So? That camp has maybe 50 people. 2 generators would be plenty for lights and basic equipment. Why do they need 4? Davis looked through his own binoculars. Power for the electronics. Exactly. And look at the cable runs between the vehicles. That's not normal field wiring. That's integrated system architecture. She watched the enemy technicians moving between equipment trucks. Their movements had purpose, coordination. This wasn't a temporary position. It was a sophisticated electronic warfare installation. They've been studying our flight patterns, Olivia said. Learning when we patrol, what routes we take, how we coordinate attacks. You can tell that from looking at their equipment. From looking at how they've arranged it. See the 3 radar dishes? They're positioned to cover overlapping search sectors. Classic air defense layout. But the 4th dish is different. Chen adjusted his scope. How? It's mobile. Mounted on a truck that can move quickly. That's not for detection. That's for targeting. A new sound echoed across the valley. Vehicle engines starting up. Movement in the camp, Davis said. Olivia watched through her binoculars as 2 trucks began moving toward different positions around the valley. They're repositioning. Getting ready for something. Davis tried the radio again. Still static. Wait, Olivia said. She pulled out a small electronic device from her kit. This is a frequency counter. Let me see what they're broadcasting on. The device's display showed multiple active frequencies. Too many for normal military communications. They're not just jamming us. They're preparing to jam aircraft systems. As if summoned by her words, the distant sound of jet engines reached them. A-10s, flying their regular patrol pattern. Warthog flight, this is ground team. Davis tried desperately to reach Morrison's flight. Warthog flight, you are flying into hostile electronic warfare zone. Static. Through her binoculars, Olivia could see technicians running between the equipment trucks. Dish antennas turning to track the approaching aircraft. There, she pointed to a larger vehicle at the center of the camp. That's the command truck. See the multiple antenna arrays? That's what's coordinating everything. The A-10s were visible now, 2 aircraft flying in standard formation. Olivia watched the enemy dishes track them like predators following prey. They're about to light them up, she said. Davis grabbed her shoulder. Can you identify specific equipment? What we need to target? The command vehicle is the key. Take that out and the rest of the system can't coordinate. But it's heavily shielded. Hardened against electronic attack. What about kinetic attack? Missiles would work, but... Gunfire erupted behind them. Muzzle flashes from the rocks above their position. Contact! Chen shouted, returning fire. More weapons opened up from their flanks. They were surrounded. How did they find us? Davis yelled over the gunfire. Olivia looked at the electronic equipment below, then at the device in her hands. The same way they track aircraft. Electronic signatures. Our radios, our equipment. They can detect us. Bullets sparked off rocks around them. Chen cursed as fragments cut his face. We're pinned down, Davis said into his radio, knowing no one could hear him through the jamming. The A-10s were directly overhead now, but their pilots had no idea ground forces needed help. Olivia watched the enemy command vehicle through her binoculars. Technicians worked frantically at control panels. She could see the moment they activated their weapons. They're targeting the A-10s now, she said. Bullets whined overhead as Olivia worked with her frequency counter. The jamming had patterns. Everything electronic had patterns if you knew how to read them. There, she said, adjusting the device. They're rotating jamming frequencies every 30 seconds. I can get us a window. Davis fired 3 rounds at muzzle flashes above them. How long a window? Maybe 10 seconds between rotations. Chin pressed against the rocks beside them, blood trickling from his forehead. Not enough time for a full message. It's enough. Olivia watched the frequency display. Get ready. The jamming static shifted slightly. She keyed the radio. Warthog 1, ground team. Electronic attack imminent. Break left now. The transmission cut off as jamming resumed. Through her binoculars, she watched Morrison's A-10 suddenly bank hard to the left. His wingman followed. They heard us, Davis said. But the enemy had heard them too. More gunfire erupted from positions around their hiding spot. Rock fragments peppered Olivia's helmet. Below in the valley, the enemy technicians were adjusting their equipment, tracking the A-10s with their mobile dishes. Warthog 1, they're targeting your electrical systems, Olivia transmitted during the next jamming gap. Fly unpredictable patterns. Morrison's voice crackled back. Copy, wrench. Can you mark targets? Olivia looked at the enemy command vehicle through her binoculars. It sat protected behind earthen barriers, surrounded by guards and equipment trucks. Negative on laser designation. We're pinned down. A bullet struck the rock inches from her head. She ducked instinctively, then forced herself to look back at the target area. Warthog 1, command vehicle is centered in the camp. Large truck with multiple antennas. Grid reference. She read coordinates from her GPS device. Copy coordinates. Coming in from the east. Davis grabbed her arm. We need to move. They've got our position. Enemy soldiers were advancing from 3 directions. Olivia could see muzzle flashes getting closer. Wait. She watched the command vehicle through her binoculars. They're moving the truck. The large command vehicle was backing away from its protected position. If it reached the hills, the mission would fail. Warthog 1, target is relocating. You have maybe 2 minutes before they're mobile. Roger. Making attack run now. Davis pulled at her shoulder. Hart, we need to go. She looked at him, then at Chin, who was bleeding more heavily now. They needed to move to survive. But if the command vehicle escaped, more aircraft would be lost. More pilots would die. Go, she said. Get Chin to the extraction point. What? I need to guide the strike. Someone has to keep eyes on target. You'll be killed. Olivia stayed pressed against the rocks, binoculars fixed on the command vehicle. Maybe. But that truck can't be allowed to escape. Davis hesitated, torn between mission and personnel. That's an order, Sergeant, she said, using her rank for the first time in the field. Davis helped Chin to his feet. Don't be a hero, Hart. I'm not being a hero. I'm doing my job. They moved toward the extraction point as enemy fire increased around Olivia's position. She was alone now, with bullets striking closer every second. Morrison's A-10 appeared over the eastern ridge, diving toward the valley. Warthog 1, command vehicle is moving north. Big truck with 4 antenna arrays. You're coming in too steep. I see it. Adjusting attack angle. Through her binoculars, Olivia watched the truck accelerate toward the hills. Morrison's aircraft lined up for its gun run. Warthog 1, you're lined up perfectly. Send it. Morrison's GAU-8 cannon erupted. The distinctive sound of the A-10's gun rolled across the valley like thunder. Rounds stitched across the command vehicle, tearing through armor and electronics. The truck exploded in a ball of flame and smoke. Target destroyed. Olivia transmitted. Outstanding shooting, Warthog 1. But something was wrong. Morrison's A-10 wasn't pulling up from its attack dive. The aircraft flew erratically, systems obviously failing. Warthog 1, what's your status? Morrison's voice was tight with strain. Multiple systems failure. They got me with something during the gun run. Losing hydraulic pressure and electrical power. Olivia could see the A-10 struggling to maintain controlled flight. Smoke trailed from its right engine. Warthog 1, can you make it back to base? Negative. I'm going to have to put her down somewhere. Olivia studied Morrison's aircraft through her binoculars. She could see the damage, recognize the symptoms. Morrison, listen to me carefully. You've got secondary hydraulic failure. Switch to manual reversion now. Already tried. Controls are sluggish. That's normal. Reduce airspeed to 160. Lower your landing gear manually to create drag. Wrench, there's nowhere to land out here. Olivia scanned the terrain through her binoculars. There's a dry lake bed 2 miles southwest of your position. Flat ground, hard-packed sand. I see it. Come in shallow. Don't flare until the last second. The aircraft will want to drop hard with manual controls. Morrison's A-10 lined up with the makeshift runway. Olivia held her breath as the aircraft approached the lake bed, flying lower and slower than seemed possible. The plane touched down hard, bounced once, then settled onto the sand. It slid for several hundred yards before coming to rest upright. Warthog 1 on deck, Morrison transmitted. Thanks, Wrench. You just saved my life. The base medical facility smelled of antiseptic and fresh bandages. Olivia sat on the examination table while a medic cleaned the cuts on her face from rock fragments. Her ribs ached where she'd pressed against stones for 3 hours, but nothing was broken. You're lucky, Sergeant, the medic said. These are all superficial. Lucky wasn't the word Olivia would have used. Successful, maybe. The mission had worked exactly as planned. The door opened and Morrison walked in, followed by Colonel Reynolds. Morrison looked tired but uninjured. His emergency landing had gone perfectly. How are you feeling, Hart? Reynolds asked. Ready for duty, sir. Reynolds pulled up a chair. We need to debrief yesterday's operation. Your actions in the field saved multiple aircraft and crew members. I just did what needed to be done, sir. You did considerably more than that. Reynolds opened a folder. Intelligence confirms the command vehicle you identified was coordinating electronic attacks across the entire sector. Its destruction has restored normal air operations. Morrison nodded. 3 flights reported clear communications and normal electronics yesterday. First time in weeks. Additionally, Reynolds continued, Captain Morrison's aircraft would have been lost without your technical guidance during his emergency landing. That's a $15 million aircraft and an experienced pilot. Olivia looked at Morrison. Just glad you made it down safely, sir. Hart, I'm prepared to offer you immediate transfer to intelligence analysis or forward air control training. Your performance demonstrates capabilities beyond aircraft maintenance. The offer hung in the air like morning fog. Intelligence work meant regular missions, field assignments, recognition for tactical thinking. Everything she thought she wanted. Thank you, sir. That's very generous. But Olivia thought about the hangar, the aircraft, the satisfaction of keeping complex machines operational. Sir, I appreciate the offer, but I'd like to stay with maintenance. Reynolds frowned. Stay with maintenance? After proving yourself in the field? I'd like to stay with maintenance and serve as liaison between ground operations and air support. Someone who understands both aircraft systems and field requirements. Morrison smiled. That's actually brilliant. How many times have we lost aircraft because pilots and ground forces couldn't communicate technical requirements? It would be a new position, Reynolds said. We'd have to create the role officially. Then we create it, Morrison said. Hart's proven she can bridge that gap. 2 weeks later, Olivia stood in the maintenance hangar, checking hydraulic systems on the same A-10 she'd been working on when this all started. But everything had changed. "Sergeant Hart?" A young lieutenant approached with a clipboard. "I'm Lieutenant Baker, new pilot. I understand you do technical briefings for field operations." "That's right. What do you need to know?" "I'm flying close air support tomorrow. Ground team needs to understand how weather affects our targeting systems." Olivia wiped her hands on a rag. "Let's talk about it. Weather impacts electronics in ways most people don't expect." She spent 20 minutes explaining how humidity affected radar, how temperature changes influenced GPS accuracy, and how dust storms could interfere with communication systems. Baker took notes, asking detailed questions. "This is incredibly useful," he said. "No one ever explained the technical limitations before." After he left, Olivia returned to her aircraft inspection. The work felt the same but different. She was still turning wrenches, still diagnosing problems, still keeping aircraft mission ready. But now her expertise extended beyond the hangar. "Mind if I interrupt?" She looked up to see Morrison approaching. He carried 2 cups of coffee. "Captain, how's the new bird treating you?" "Like a dream. Your replacement hydraulic system works perfectly." He handed her a coffee. "I wanted to discuss something with you." "Sir?" "Next month's operation requires close coordination between air and ground assets. Multiple aircraft, complex timing, technical requirements that need to be understood by everyone involved." Olivia sipped her coffee. "Sounds like something that needs careful planning." "It does. And I can't think of anyone better qualified to coordinate the technical aspects." Morrison leaned against the aircraft. "Interested in another field assignment?" She looked around the hangar. Mechanics worked on other aircraft, the familiar sounds of maintenance filling the air. This was still her world, her place. But now it was also the starting point for something bigger. If you enjoyed Olivia's inspiring story of proving herself against all odds, please hit that like button and subscribe for more military stories.